Hello, I'm Saul Sunforge, and this is Dungeons and Taverns. Welcome to my first video on my creature creation series. This is going to be a series that breaks down existing creatures, how to create new creatures from those existing creatures, and to beef them up and expand on them. If you're seeking to play the game as is, and you're seeking the monsters as is, this is not going to be a series for you. We're going to be changing stat blocks, we're going to be changing armor classes, health, we're going to maybe be changing their abilities, giving them additional magic powers, creating legendary actions and villainous actions, layer actions. That's all going to be covered in this series through a bunch of different types of creatures. But before you watch the video, I want to say that however you play is fine with me. It's fine. It should be fine with everybody. I'm not gatekeeping. I'm merely noticing a trend over the course of editions where creatures seem to be getting a little bit weaker and weaker as we go. In the name of inclusivity is what I suspect, to get more people into the hobby. And that's a great thing to have more people into the hobby, I think. But there's those of you who wish for more of a challenge, those DMs out there who wish to give players a bit more of a oh crap moment. And especially if you're playing with veteran players, they already know the tricks. And yeah, you're not supposed to metagame and things like that, but there's going to be metagaming all the time. How are you going to forget that trolls could regenerate? And if you hit them with fire or acid, that it stops that from happening. You can't forget that knowledge yourself once you get it. So it's very easy to transfer these knowledges from character to character because it's you who has the knowledge. Well, metagaming is fine. It's necessary, I think. As a DM, what you can do is you can change up the resistances and the vulnerabilities in the triggers for certain characteristics of that creature you're playing. However, that's not what this video is on. This video is on demons specifically. So before I go on a longer tangent than I already have, let's get to the meat of the video. I just wanted to give that little bit of a disclaimer up front for those of you who only watch a few moments of a video. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe and let your friends know. Demons are chaotic evil, whereas the devils are a lawful evil. To me, this would make demons more destructive in terms of their fighting prowess. They're more bestial, whereas devils are more intelligent. And actually, if it wasn't for the Blood War, devils would claim that demons would already take over the material plane. And so the humanoids that live on the material plane actually owe benevolence to their own existence due to the devil's interference in the Blood War. Now, demons are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Thankfully, since they're all out for themselves to prove, who has the most power, they don't really organize. And so demonic incursions into the material world, while not unheard of, are rather rare. Because in order to get demons to have any semblance of a cohesive unit, there has to be a lot of force, power, and intimidation involved in that. Now, here's a little excerpt from the Forgotten Realms wiki page. And demons are beings of utterly wanton wickedness. They're cruel, savage, without compassion and empathy, and unfamiliar with concepts like fear or mercy. And that's what I mean by their savage, bestial nature, whereas a devil would be more to try to mess with you, try to get you to sign a contract or to agree to something that you don't necessarily know the terms of, and they are powerful and can take you out. Demons have no other purpose other than to take you out, and not to lunch, unless you are their lunch. Every thought that crossed their minds is tainted by hate and malice, each believing that only its own desires are important, so they're very narcissistic. They despise benevolence, which means they particularly like to go after very good creatures. If your party has a paladin or a cleric in it, you might want to throw a demon or two chasing them down throughout the campaign. That's a nice little side arc there for you, and it doesn't take very much investment in you at all. You can do it with just maybe a half hour of prep work, and your entire campaign for that little arc will be done. So first and foremost, demons exist to spread chaos and evil. All other activities serve this ultimate goal of sowing strife and disorder. They crave the opportunity to be unleashed upon the cosmos, always searching for a way out of the abyss, and would open more purely to expand their influence of chaos and evil in the multiverse. Demons, they don't have a de facto leader like devils do. They don't have a Asmodeus, but the most powerful demon lord is thought to be Demogorgon. Now, I don't want to give you any spoilers to my campaign in case you're watching, but the players are about to, well, they already have, but they're increasingly entrapped in a scenario where demons are going to play rather heavy. And that's all I'll say about that. So if you want to see that, keep watching because it's about to happen. All right, and then let me give you the second insert here from the Forgotten Realms wiki page. And this is just basically, I'm reading these to give you an idea of how you might want to play these guys or girls. So under intelligence, demonic behaviors were less philosophically motivated and more falling through on instinct. There's that bestial cunning I was talking about. A manifested tendency towards arbitrary mischief and malice. Some acted entirely on instinct with no plan at all, but all demons had some aspect of brute in them, enjoying overt expressions of power, and they disliked hiding their own. Few demons made good manipulators, as chaos was a poor basis for careful plans and patience, which combined with their wickedness stopped them from fulfilling all of their long-term bargains. Even if those in power didn't kill their own servants for their amusement, they might sacrifice them in service to bizarre and nonsensical plans, and they could be almost absurdly poor strategists. Even those demons who specialize in plots could not be expected to show extreme levels of subtlety and restraint. Demons like immediate gratification and are known for their impulsiveness, many times abandoning their schemes in favor of immediate rewards of blood and souls, and even those with long-term ambitions could be easily distracted with them. For all their narcissism, even powerful demons in command of their kin could be embarrassed if a situation where they should dominate was turned against them. In the heat of the moment, might become so enraged that they attacked, or even so agitated that they retreated entirely, regardless of the impact on their overall plans. Furthermore, it was not impossible for them to have insecurities, and despite their often alien view of fear, some used their rage to hide what did scare them. And then this last part here. All this in mind, demons were not stupid. In fact, most types were very mentally competent. Those that followed the ways of manipulation, doing so well. Only especially brutish demons would sacrifice more safe and certain victories just to revel in bloodshed, and even they would not necessarily surrender their many advantages simply to cause more direct damage. Selfish as they are, demons also had some degree of social skills, and some have a pack mentality or willingness to work with non-demons. Demons were not always against running away either, not just because it was smart, but because it could be fun. Leaving before a conflict was over was an act that could cause suffering in its own way. It could be more profitable and amusing than staying around. And though they usually returned, unpredictability was perhaps the most insidious of demonic traits. The reason I'm telling you this is so you know how to act more in line with how the demon is portrayed in 5th edition. But be mindful that you are the DM and you can change any of these things, any of these traits, any one, two, or all of them. And that's what we're about to do right now. Now, I'm going to use this website here that I use. And I have brought up all the books that I have several times. It's just a lot easier for me, but you can find it in the books, the page numbers here in the top right for any of these types of enemies. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at some of these demons here. And this is the list of all the demons that are currently officially in the game. Of course, you could create your unofficial stuff. All right, so of course we have these demons down here, the lower level demons. You know, they're arranged by CR. So we have dretches, abyssal wretches, abyssal chickens, mains. These are going to be like your shock troopers, okay? Whenever you have anybody who's listening to a demon, it's always going to be these weaklings who absolutely could not do anything to oppose a stronger demon's orders. And if you're looking for a flying demon for a henchman, I would go with a Chasme. They got a CR6. They have a fly speed. Look at that, fly speed is 60 feet. They have decent hit points. But the reason you want to use flying enemies is oftentimes parties are not capable of dealing with flying enemies as effectively as they could with ground troops. And then if you have a low level party and you want to introduce demons, I would say a Quasit is a pretty good enemy to introduce. It's only a CR1, but you can see that it has stealth, it has damage resistances to cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. It's immune to being poisoned. And Quasits can change into a bat or a centipede or a toad, and they'll gain climb speed, fly speed, or swim speed from those changes, and then they could change back to their true form, obviously. So these are, essentially the shock troops that you can send in to try to occupy some of the party members or to soften them up for a bit. As a DM, you never want the party to be fighting somebody at full power, because a party at full power is going to be able, you could throw all these challenge ratings out the window, and you really can't in the first place. These really are just people who make board games and just threw some numbers together. They're not nearly as balanced, in my opinion, as they were in prior editions. So if you find that you're throwing too many enemies at the party, then go ahead and reduce their hit points behind the scene, or you could reduce the enemies or the planned phases that you have. If you plan in your head to have 10 enemies, but 7 of them, the party seems like they're having a kind of a hard time dealing with 7, you might want to give them that 8th one and then stop. You don't want to, intentionally overwhelm the party because, that's easy to do. And in order to make combat go a bit faster, you can watch my last video on group stacking, and you can make a stack of these lower level monsters into something of a formidable opponent if you wish to. And then we have Shosuvas, which I like to use as a demonic mount. But they are very capable of fighting. So they use them as your melee troops. They have a stinger that has a 15-foot reach, so make sure you utilize that fully. Their bite does a lot of damage, and they get a bite and a stinger attack each turn, and they're rather quick. Well, relatively speaking, quicker than the party, as the party's average speed is 35, so they're 40. They have a lot of hit points, but their armor class is low, so they're going to be able to soak up a lot of your party's attention if you use a few of these. I wouldn't go crazy with them, but 2 or 3 is definitely enough to give the party notice. Anything that's listed from CR9 and above, I personally would use them as the boss of battle for that arc. And since we know that demons really only respect power and fear, that would be subjugated upon them for not doing things, and that's really their only motivation. You really would only want to have any of these CRs and below, like CR 8, 9, maybe even 7. Those type of creatures would really only follow orders, and maybe even only temporarily, for a creature that was much, much powerful than itself. Like a CR 9 and below would be fine for like a CR, maybe 16 and somewhere in that range. Like, they're really not going to follow them unless they can just utterly just destroy them. And that's the only way that you'll gain a demon's allegiance, and it's only temporary. So when you play these people in battle, you can have some of them leave the battle. They could come back later. They could come back with perhaps reinforcements of other smaller level creatures that they want to enter into the fight. You can have the battle be over some type of portal, and so demons occasionally come through. You roll a d4 every round or so, and then you have that many demons come through. Obviously, the more demons that you roll, the less powerful they should be, so the party doesn't get entirely overwhelmed really, within a few rounds. But you don't want all these battles to always be just, they're not random encounters. You almost always want to make these battles to be high stakes. You want it to be over a location, over a portal, over an entire settlement, or even a kingdom, or to even stop a demonic incursion that has started, in order for you to make sure that it doesn't expand out and grow, like a cancer. It spreads out, and then, maybe several other portals happen to open up in that same area, and then you have a full-scale incursion. So you want the players to feel the weight of that decision to encounter these beings, because if they fail, it could mean the end of the material world. Now, the fun thing about demons is that they're all different. They can literally all be different, even from one demon to the next within the same type, and you can play that up. So what I do in order to play that up is I just draw from the things that I like. I just started getting kind of into anime, and I'm already pretty creative as it is. I read a lot of books, and I've played a lot of games over the years. So the first thing you do when you're creating a demon, or really anything, is you determine how alien would this being be to those, essentially your party members, but to everybody in the material world. How alien would this demon be? And the more powerful that you intend the demon to be, the more alien and unknown you can make him. The feeling of unknown is what causes the suspension, which causes the hesitancy. It's what causes the fear. That's why whenever you watch horror movies, all the better horror movies, in my opinion, they hide the villain. You might see his shadow or an arm or something like that. They hide them until the end, until it's closer to the end. Because the reveal, once you reveal that creature or that demon or that devil or whatever you're making, once you reveal them, all that mystery starts to unravel and go away. So you want to create a very alien being. You can give it tentacles or spikes, whatever you'd like to do. That's just the basics. I created a demon that the party was supposed to fight. They took a different direction, and that's fine. So only Asgrim was able to encounter her. And most of my demons I actually do make as men, but some of the more ones filled with malice and with more special powers, I tend to make them ladies. I tend to make them female, the magic users and things like that. And then I'll describe them as having more elegant colors or different hues to their wings, or their scales of their skin, or a forked tongue. However you want to do it, I always try to make it so that the ladies have a more of a wider range of description. And usually the way I do it is the bigger the description, the more imminent of a threat that person poses to you. And the simple reason for that is simply nobody wants to sit there and hear you describe every little skeleton and the chips and what bones they're missing and all that stuff. But if a Baylor comes to town, you better bet everybody's going to be listening. And that's when you go off. Alright, so what was different about my Mercurial demon than any of these demons? After all, I did take the stat block for a few of them and combine them, but I added my own things. Well, what made her different is she was faster than of pretty much any of the demons. I think her base speed was 80, and then she had a fly speed of 120 or something like that. So she was able to fly and, back and forth around the battlefield. Her control of the battlefield was amazing. Excuse me. And because of that, your players are going to take notice. The spellcasters are not going to know where they can go truly to be safe, because the creature that they're attacking is so fast that they may be able to reach them in a turn or two from almost anywhere on the board. And then I gave her some claw attacks. I gave her sharpened claws. Now, she was actually made out of mostly metal, and so her blood is actually Mercury. That's why I called her the Mercurial Demon. So whenever the melee party members would slash at her, they had a chance to receive a stack of mercury poisoning. Now, this was like a year ago, so I don't remember exactly, but there was like 5 different levels of mercury poisoning if they got hit with, speed slowdowns. Maybe they lose their reaction because they were poisoned, so they'd be barfing and throwing up and things, and so that maybe they would lose their reaction, and maybe their speed would get reduced. Maybe I think one of the effects was that they actually had so much mercury poisoning. I think it was 5 stacks of mercury poisoning. After that 5th stack, they actually themselves started turning into mercury. They were no longer taking poison damage from the mercury, and they were able to get resistances to a lot of different types of damage and things like that because they became mercury. And but that battle never actually happened, so it might get found again for the next campaign and recycled, or I might change it up a bit, introduce it as a new demon. Another thing that I gave her was she had 2 different movement phases in the same round. Because of how fast she was and because of her dexterity bonus, I let her move on initiative count her normal initiative and then half of it. I think her initiative was like 24 or something like that. So she would have had a movement at 24 and at 12. Another ability that she had is the worshippers and things who summoned her through the old portal that was thought to be, is kind of out of existence of history because of how old this thing was that the party stumbled upon, underneath the sewer system of the city of Coventry. They found the portal and the worshippers. While the Mercurial Demon, when she would lose half her health, would be able to go into a phase where, and it was really, it was one of the legendary actions, I believe it was, where, it cost all 3 legendary actions. And I put a lot of requirements on it. I didn't have to, and you don't have to. But after her health got so low, it triggered her legendary action on the next time that she had 3 available, that she was able to, raise her hands, and, her wings would jut out, and she would, in these purple, mana tendrils basically would go out to, her followers within, I think it was like within 50 feet of her, and then each additional follower had to be within 20 feet or something like that. And she was able to siphon health off of her followers to go back up. But the thing is, she only has so many followers, right? You don't want to keep giving her more and more followers, then the party's going to feel cheated. But once it was discovered that this was the source of her gaining health, and they figured out how to stop some of the legendary actions from firing off, because I allow that to happen too. I allow certain things in qualifiers to happen before certain other things do happen. Triggering events, And so the party, they were able to figure out, the ones that fought her were able to figure out some of her abilities and some of the things that she was able to do. I had to change up the fight drastically, though, because going into the fight, I thought there was going to be 6 people fighting, and some NPCs that the party brought along with them. Well, the party veered a different way, as is allowed, and so one party member ended up fighting the Mercurial Demon, along with, I think, like 8 NPCs. So instead of having this grand battle with the entire party, the party discovered a book, and transported themselves into the book world in order to save the king's son. But that's all. If you want to see all that, that's all there already on the channel for you to watch, actually. But the thing is that it changed my plans up, right? So I didn't get to go through all the stuff that I had planned for her. So I'll just, next time I make a demon or something, I'll just add some of the cool abilities or refine them, and everything will go along as normal. Another thing that I would caution you about is when you go to make your demon, don't make them infallible. Don't make them resistant to everything. Give them every magic item. That's not fun. That's not fun for the party. And you already know that you can do that, and you already know what the outcome of those decisions that you made are to the party, and the long-term benefit, there is none. The short-term benefit, there really isn't any. You already know you can make these things for the party. And part of the contract of playing is that they trust you, that they're agreeing to play in your world as long as you kind of somewhat make it fair. Now, if they make bad decisions, that's a different thing. You can feel free to punish them as you wish, according to how often and how many they make. But you don't want to make these infallible beings, because then there's just no reason. There's no reason to fight them. You already know you're not going to win, so there's no reason to play, and it starts a cascading thing like that. So you want to avoid that. If you give your demon extra attacks, you might want to trim down on the damage that each attack does a bit. You don't ever want anybody to feel like they could be one-shotted at any moment, because that's not typically really fair on the dice rolls. That's why D&D now has it so that if you fail a save, you have a chance to roll again to try to save again. And that's why there's 3 death saves now and all these other things. So if you want to make it harder, you start tailing back some of those items. And if you want to make it easier, you start thinking of and adding more of them in. I wouldn't recommend giving any demon more than 5 legendary actions. And if you were to give them 5 legendary actions, you want to make legendary actions that require a different number of those. So if you have 5 legendary actions and you have a legendary action that requires all 5, it better be the bee's knees. It has to be a showstopper. And those are all things for you to create. So keep that in mind when you're creating something that you want to fully flesh it out like it needs to be. And ideally, you want to flesh it out more than Hasbro Wizards of the Coast does themselves. Another thing that I wanted to show you is from the demon Amarylith. Now, Amarylith kind of looks like a Yuan-ti, but with several arms. They get a whole bunch of attacks, like 7. They get 7 attacks. 6 with their longsword and 1 with their tail. But the thing that I wanted to show you about this is the reactive ability. The Amarylith can take 1 reaction on every turn in combat. Now, look at Y. Look at that dex. 20 dex plus 5 for the bonus, right? Now, giving her that many reactions doesn't really make her much harder. I mean, it does. But the thing is that if she gets that many reactions, that impresses upon you how fast she is, right? So any demons that you create that are fast, I would highly recommend that you give them the reactive. Another thing that you probably would like to consider at least is giving your demons a teleport ability. Some type of shadow step or a phase step. Because it's important that when you have a demon on the board, that is a force of personality. Everybody is forced to deal with that imminent threat, right? But what happens when that threat is able to deal with multiple people at once, or even use the teleport to go to a more advantageous position to them? What if you gave a ranged demon teleport? So in other words, they're ranged, they're harassing the party with whatever you want, with projectiles or magic from ranged, and the party goes to try to surround them, and they just teleport out. These are different scenarios that you give the party in order for them to make decisions in battle to determine the outcome. The more decisions that you make them have to make, split second, is going to heat up the intensity of that fight quite dramatically. Well, that's all I can fit into this half-hour video. That's my time. I got about 20 seconds left, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this, go ahead and subscribe. Leave a comment down in the comment section. I respond to everything. You can also follow me on Facebook. All the socials are down below. You can join our Discord. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day. It's time for me to go door dashing for about 10 hours. Take care of yourselves.